everyone. It is week 2 of the XP Billionaires Quarantine Edition. I'm Rayfe, and I'm not going to bore you with more stuff about self isolation. We've been there long enough. So move on and just introduce my co hosts, Sky Knight, Irene Rogue, and the Malzerker. It's a really nice full house that we've got here, and it makes for some great discussion, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sky, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. Cozy.
I believe you. All right, Irene, how are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Still, plugging away at animals and their crossings.
That's impressive. And Mel, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I am excited. So I've downloaded a whole bunch of Steam games on my things I meant to play list, and I have them all organized. So my next things up are the Circular series, Quarantine, and Subsurface Circular. So I'm really excited to be able to get to some of those shorter experiences that I just haven't found time for.
No, and this has been a really good time for that. I mean, I've still gotten through a few more things here and there. My big project, I've been plowing through Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and yeah, maybe I'll get to the end someday.
You're nowhere near.
I know. All right. Well, before that depressing thought kicks in, let's say we get on with this week's topic. So, RPG developers love to give us a huge variety of monsters to fight in their vast worlds. To do that, they'll pull designs from both imagination and lore. So this week, we're going to delve into the lore aspect of that as we discuss supernatural creatures. Whether enemy or ally, these creatures tend to have a different design trait or characteristic that does differentiate itself from other games. That's not always to the creature's benefit, however. So on that note,
it's time for another good idea, bad idea.
So this week, we're going to give some of our examples of the best and worst supernatural creatures used in RPGs. There's no real specific criteria for what makes them good or bad. What we'll try to do is try to make them fairly similar reasonings between them. So, for example, if it's design related or if it's implementation, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to see how things go. So, as always, when one of our turns comes up, we're going to give both our good and our bad during that turn. Who draws the short straw today? Well, Sky, looks like you are getting to go first today. So let's start off with your good idea. What's a good supernatural being?
All right. Well, I am doing a race of supernatural beings, and it's the mannequins from Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. Now, I love these characters because they're very unique. The mannequins are a race that appears after the end of the world. And basically, they are vaguely creepy, sort of human-like beings. They kind of look almost dollish to me. But what they are the physical manifestations of the emotions of the humans who died in the apocalypse. So they're kind of human, but kind of not. Like, you can talk to them. Most of them are pretty sentient, but they twitch and spasm and tend to be rather extreme and
Upsetting.
strange in their behavior. Yeah, it's kind of upsetting. I like them because they add so convincingly to the already eerie atmosphere of the game, and they also fulfill some roles you need in most RPGs. Like, they'll be like your shopkeepers and that sort of thing. They're most of the NPCs that you'll see in the games, the ones that aren't demons anyways. And they're kind of interesting too because while they're kind of creepy, most of them are shown not to be evil. There is one very notable exception to that, but most of them aren't. And they're in fact just trying to survive in this new world order, basically, which is really just sort of the Nocturne sort of covers the events directly after the apocalypse. And so this is very much a short-term survival sort of thing as they go to a different future. But Yeah, I think they were really well done, and I can't think of anything else I've seen like them. So, yeah, they're my good idea.
I kind of like the idea of like a dull, like homunculus left behind after the apocalypse. That's kind of
Yeah,
neat.
yeah, they're really interesting, and it helps make the world feel a little less empty. Like, I mean, it's post-apocalyptic. The world is pretty empty, but there are things other than just the few humans who survived, which is basically like, I don't know, five of them or something. There wasn't very many. And the demons. There's at least something else still in the world. And I think that's important as to not make it feel too bleak.
I mean, it is an apocalypse. It's allowed to be somewhat bleak.
Oh yeah,
But
and it still is, but I mean, I think bleak in more of a boring sense, you know? Like
oh
there's still
yeah.
something to interact with.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that being said, let's hear your bad idea.
Okay. I think I may have mentioned this one in the past, but it's so bad I couldn't not pick it. And it is Hildegard Valentine from Shadow Hearts from the New World.
Oh, the vampire girl.
Yeah. I could not pick this for it because she is so bad. A vampire magical girl sounds like an amazing character until you add the fact that she can gain or lose calories super fast to have a quote unquote curvy or quote unquote slim form. Yeah,
Uh...
and it kind of changes
Yeah.
personality for some reason too. So like her curvy form is nice and sweet, and her slim form is just kind of rude. So problematic, I want to scream, and it's all the more frustrating because there was so much potential there for her to be a cool character. And they did this. But
Yeah.
she's kind of a microcosm of that whole game where it's just like you had some good ideas and you took it too far. If they had stopped at Vampire Magical Girl, that would have been fine. Yes, it would have been silly, but the Shadow Heart series has always been a little silly.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with silliness. I love Bayonetta.
Yeah, well, exactly.
She repositions a satellite by pole dancing on it.
Yeah.
Oh my
Like-
god, amazing.
Like I could have been on board for Vampire Magical Girl. But this was just so deeply problematic and such a bad idea because like with all the issues we have in the world around fat shaming and fat phobia and all that, like a character like this just doesn't help. So yeah, that's why she's my bad idea. Like I really struggled with this one, but when push came down to shove, like I couldn't pick anything else but Hilda because she was just is such a terrible idea.
No, fair enough. All right. So those are the first set of good and bad designs. Irene, what are yours?
So, good idea. I wanted to talk another thing about Shin Megami Tensei, actually, and I wanted to talk about the shadows, specifically the what we, Persona 3 referred to as the big shadows, but more in the context of Persona 4 and 5, the boss shadows. So, I really like this idea that they came up with, where a shadow is sort of like that person that you don't want other people to see. It's like it's a true part of yourself that you hide away from the rest of the world. And if you don't reconcile with it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and until the point where it can consume you completely. And that's what we see happening to the protagonists in Persona 4 and a lot of the antagonists in Persona 5. Like the shadows just get bigger and bigger and bigger until they can't be ignored anymore, and they actually start having real world consequences for these characters. And when we actually get into the design of the shadows themselves, not only just like the, standard human form, but even like the big mask off shadow form, like in the form of the boss fight, then we have some really neat stuff going on. So like the one that is most memorable to me from Persona 5, and I don't know why it is, but it's the artist. The artist in Persona 5. So his palace is all glitzy and glamorous and golden and full of works that he stole from other students, right? And he himself is like clothed in like gold silks and like dressed to the nines, just perfect down to every last detail. But when you get to the shadow self, the actual like mask off version, it's a series of paintings that are like suspended in midair, right? With basically, so in Japan, they use specific characters to like make a little face to help kids learn what the parts of the face are called. And it's that face that's just been drawn on these individual canvases. And I thought that was really great because like he himself has no artistic talent. Not really. Not like his students, not like the people he steals from. And it's just like basically it's the equivalent of drawing a stick figure, and I thought that was amazing. Like it was really well executed. But anyway, that's my good idea. Like the big shadows, the way that they are both in human form and in shadow form, designed to sort of like really speak to the core of that character's psyche.
The series has always had really excellent boss design, and it was really nice in those games to see how they really tied it into what they were doing with the plot and the characters.
Right? Like they tied in the boss monsters so well to the plots by having these characters, like having the boss monsters like reflect the characters themselves, reflect their conflicts, reflect their innermost desires, the things that they're ashamed to admit to themselves that they want, or the things that they're afraid of. And I thought that was really excellent. Like that whole like inner palace of the mind thing, really taken to the nth degree, and they just nail it every time. They're extremely careful with designing those bosses, right? Like no detail is too small, and they're all like extremely it seems like they've designed head to toe every portion of the boss and every portion of the shadow. It's like even in human form, to really deliberately. They've made deliberate choices, and it shows.
All right, let's move on to your bad idea.
So I thought and I thought and I thought, and nothing was really coming to mind. And then it was the, as my father used to say, lunch bag letdown of the final boss fight for Final Fantasy X. Sorry, I love that game. But the whole game, you are fighting against increasingly, like, decadent and sort of, ornate versions of Seymour in order to overcome him and beat Sin. Sin is like a giant whale that's like the size of a small, like, it's basically the size of a cruise ship. It's enormous. And you don't actually get to fight the whale. Instead, you fight this sort of like manifestation of the whale as a tiny, featureless black tick. And I was like, this is such a wasted opportunity. You've given me like cool boss after cool boss after cool boss, and you're ending on this note? Are you serious? And like, perhaps they were going for like this idea that sin itself and like the religion that had formed around it was parasitic in its nature with all of Spira and the people that lived there. And maybe that's what they were really trying to convey. But at the same time, like it was a boring tick. It was just paint. It was just plain black. There was nothing to it.
Yeah, I just Googled it because I only played a little bit of Final Fantasy X. Yu Yevon is the name of the boss.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's got a little bit of white detailing, but honestly, like, what a
It's a
joke.
It's a parasite. Yu Yevon is God. God is a parasite. I think they could have basically, like, expanded on that idea a little bit more and given me a creature worthy of saying that I killed God, rather than, like, I squashed a bug. It's fine. And it's worth noting, I don't think you can actually die in that fight. You've been given auto life, so it's more of like a going through the motions, right?
Yeah, it's like more of a symbolic.
Yeah, it's a symbolic fight. It's not actually like a life or death fight, but still.
Yeah, it's disappointing in every respect.
It really is. Like, and especially, like, you've just come off, like, a series of fights with Seymour, if I remember correctly. And he gets increasingly, like, big and scary and, like, worthy of your attention. And then it's just like, the fuck is this? It was just really disappointing. And I think they could have done a little bit more with the design to, like, really drive home this point that I think they were trying to make with it, making it like a small tick, was that, like, Yu Yevon was sort of like parasitic to the entire world, and it had to be removed. I think they could have gone with a much more interesting design to convey that idea.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right. So that's 2 down. Mel, you're up next. Let's get some good and bad supernatural creatures.
All right. So my good idea is from a game called Miasmata, which is was described to me by a friend as a really chill game where you're wandering on an island picking flowers to make medicine. And I was like, that sounds nice. What was neglected to mention was that you're picking flowers because you have a horrible plague, and there is a creature that is hunting you.
What?
So I'm walking
These seem
through...
like important details.
You think, like, when you're like, I'm gonna have a nice chill game, and I'm like, why can I hear my heart beating? What? And I turn around, and there is this creature behind me. So there's this creature. It specifically spawns near plants that you need in the game. So you're actually trying to solve, like, this disease that you have, and you can make other medicines and things along the way, but what you really need are these kind of 4 big special plants. And anytime you go near where one of them is, and you do not know where they are, because part of this game is actually using landmarks to actually, like, fill in your map, which is really, really cool. It's a really fun kind of mini game. So you don't know when you're going to come across it. But when you do, it is faster than you. If it sees you, it will try to kill you. It kills you in 2 hits, and you can't fight it.
This seems like a poor mechanic, but an interesting predator.
Yeah, so the creature's really weird looking. It's like kind of like a panther with, like, horns almost. And when you first start seeing it, it's this, like, you see this dark shape that stalks you. And as long as you're not looking at it, it stalks you. And from the moment you look at it, it suddenly runs at you at full speed. And spoilers for Miasmata, this creature is actually a byproduct of the disease that you have. The disease is trying to maintain itself in your body, and the way that it does it is by basically scaring you away from the plants that will save your life. So yeah, so basically it's your own psyche that's attacking you, and the reason that it always wins if you fight it is because you can't beat that part of yourself. You can't beat this disease inside you.
What? Are you saying that you can't rationalize with a mental illness?
Nope, you sure can't.
Outrageous.
But it's so good. Like, it's such a good version of it, and you sort of don't realize it. You know, there's certain things you can do, and if you get away from it, like, the only option is to do is run and hide and just keep making your way closer and closer until you've kind of managed to get what you need. But you've done some questionable stuff in this island. You've murdered some people. You know, it's been a good trip. It's not chill. But it's a very good game, and I really like the way that the monster just encompasses this all-around fear of just, like, I can't win this fight. And I think that's a thing that games don't necessarily play with all the time. Like, it's always about, like, level up, get more, you know, whatever, get a better weapon. And just having a game where, like, you can't fight this. You will lose every single time.
Well, that's the epitome of survival horror, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're strong enough to actually fight it, it's not scary anymore.
Exactly. You hear that heartbeat going. It's only you and it on this entire island. You never know. I mean, you can start to figure out where it is certain points in time if you get near something, but um, it's just this overall sense of just dread that it does so well, where it's just you and yourself on this island, and your biggest, the biggest thing to stop you from escaping is yourself. So I think it's a really cool creature.
That is cool. I agree.
It does it kind of reminds me of death in a first playthrough of Persona 3,
Oh my god, the chains.
The moment you hear the chains and you're just like, holy fuck, run for the stairs!
You're like, where are they?
What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Like, I can tell you right now, the first time I actually saw death in Persona 3, I split my party so that it would attack somebody else, and I ran for the stairs. I left someone behind to die, and I just rezzed them on.
That's very good.
And I still can't tell you what death looked like. I was so shaken. I still to this day do not know what it looks like. I saw it with my eyes, and I still can't tell you what it looked like.
That's good design. That's what you want. That feeling is just that's what it is.
I was so shaken that I'm like, nope, can't. I know it's there. I can't register it though.
Yeah, you lose the ability to retain it.
Uh-huh.
All right. So what is your bad idea?
Okay, so my bad idea is from the Shadow of Colossus, and it is the final boss in the game. I love Shadow. When it came out, I was so excited at this concept of like hunting these giant creatures, and for once you've kind of gotten over the fact of how big they are, they start playing more with different ideas. You have to be on horseback, or you have to be holding on while they swim, or something interesting. And you get to the final boss, and there's this moment where you see it in the distance, and it's this skyscraper of a creature. And my first reaction was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. But it's a skyscraper. It can't really do anything. All it can do is shoot lasers at you and kind of be annoying. So what you end up having is trying not to get stun locked as you jump between cover, and then just climbing for 45 minutes this giant building. And it's just the most tedious final boss. And it just frustrated me to no end that like it was such a cool game, and it had the potential to be such a cool design. And I mean, at some point, I get it. You get something that's too big, and it can't have that movement in the same way. But I felt like it sort of undermined the whole the idea of the game, that you're fighting Colossus, and like, ooh, isn't that scary? Because it's not really that scary when it can't shoot you when you're on it.
Like when I was talking about Sin earlier, one of the things that's scary about Sin is all the shit that lives on it. It's not necessarily Sin itself, it's the little things that it can send out, like a hive mind to attack people, right? So while Sin is this big lumbering creature that doesn't have a lot of mobility, there's all sorts of other little parts of it that have a lot more mobility. And that's what makes it so terrifying.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons the premise of Shadow of the Colossus, where like you only fight bosses, it kind of does it a disservice there, because you get big enough, it doesn't have other things to fight. So what do? Like, I guess it just becomes tedious.
Yeah, it's a fight that sounded like it needed some minions or some significant parts to it that you could fight. Some segmentation.
Maybe. There are certainly some bosses earlier in the game where you can kind of like cut off chunks of them. And yeah, I mean, it's such a good game. I really, really liked it. But the final boss, it just feels like you're trying to get between cover, and it's just so unforgiving if you make even the slightest miscalculation, but not in a way that's fun, like in a way where like I miss once and like you shoot me 4 times in the head. And it's just like, come on, like I get it. I made a mistake. I get it. Like, do we have to do this?
This is Shadow of the Colossus, not Dark Souls.
All right. So we've only got one more set left, and they're coming from me. So let's get on these. Let's see what I've got. So for my good idea, I have chosen the Nadaig from Greedfall. So the Nadaig are actually the guardians of nature on Tirfredi, the island where the game takes place. So you've got different varieties of these types of guardians. You've got guardians of the swamp, guardians of the beach, guardians of the mountain, and they each take on different characteristics, but those characteristics are similar to that location that they're actually protecting. For example, the mountain guardian, the mountain Nadag, is a bird-like creature. It has wings. It commands molten rock. It's a really impressive sight. The forest guardian it kind of has a very kind of a cattle skull face, but the horns are actually roots. So it's a really good design there.
They're kind of like almost ant looking in some ways, like ants if they were fast and super scary.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, no, they're excellent. And the cool thing about them is that these were originally leaders of the native tribes within Tier 4D. They've been imbued by basically the god of the land, to be guardians, to protect nature, to protect the things around them. So you being one of the colonists, you kind of going in guns blazing, killing them off, isn't necessarily gonna make you friends with the natives.
Yeah, the design of these are really impressive, and they're actually quite scary. Like I haven't gotten through Greedfall yet, but the ones I have fought are like they are way faster than you'd think, given how tree-like they look, right? You expect them to be slow and lumbering, but no. And so there's actually those fights are actually pretty epic. They're really well done.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they're overall, it's just from a design perspective. I think they really encompass that they are the guardians of the island, and that's what I think that was done really well, is that they had the aesthetic that just guarantees us, oh, okay, you one, you're big, two, you're covered in roots, or you're covered in swamp water, or you have tendrils. Yeah, you're protecting the land. So that's my good idea. Now, as for my bad idea, I'm once again we are going back to the realm of Shin Megami Tensei, and while this is a very SMT heavy episode, I think we all had different things to say about them. So in this case, I'm actually talking about a very specific demon, and that demon is Mara. Mara is the ultimate nightmare demon designed by Atlas. Like Mara's origins actually come from Buddhist traditions. So, and the physical description of it has been warped significantly for Shin Megami Tensei. So yeah, so you're basically looking at a phallic-shaped creature with tentacles, a mouth, and riding what appears to be a chariot. So it's a huge leap away from its origins. And like, I don't know why I have to say this, but I feel like I have to say this. Genitals should not have teeth.
Neither should boobs. Looking at you, Digital Devil Saga.
That seemed like very pointless sexualization of Argilla there, having her mouth be on her tits. That was dumb.
Yeah, Mara, I don't know why they did that. Like, it's funny. Like, the first time you see it, you're like, what? But
yeah, but you could get away with that funny with Incubus and his giant plastic dildo spike penis looking thing. Like, you didn't need to actually create a fanged penis. It was not necessary.
I mean, there are ways to make genitalia and tits like funny, and I think Incubus kind of like encapsulates that a little bit more closely. Mara is just terrifying.
Well, yeah, Incubus is an incubus. It's a sexual demon to begin with. Like, it's okay for them to do something like that in this case. Mara, it very minimally. Is that a representation that would be fit for Buddhism from what I was able to read? I didn't look into it in the biggest amount of detail, but I wanted to know where Mara came from at the very least to give you an idea of what it was.
I mean, to be fair, it's a pretty nice chariot.
It's a very nice chariot, but
right?
it's not for a penis with tentacles.
No, it's for me.
No. All right.
You're welcome.
All right. So that's gonna wrap it up for our discussion on supernatural creatures. It's been an interesting list that we've got going for us. So if you guys can think of any more, please let us know. We always like to hear about them. You can find me on Twitter at BillionairesXP. You can check me out on Instagram at Rayfe or on Twitch at Rayfe as well, where I stream Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and Twitch, SkyKnight.xp on Instagram, and I stream on Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right. And Irene, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at irogue_XP on Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. I usually stream on Thursdays at 7 p.m., so come check it out.
All right. And Mel, where can everyone find you?
Feminist Gamer 3 on Twitter and just Feminist Gamer on Instagram and Facebook. And I have an actual play D&D podcast, Darkness and Dragons, and we are on Twitch every Wednesday from 6:30 to 9 EST.
Awesome. And don't forget to check out our website for quickfire reviews, written work, and stream schedules. That's at xpbillionaires.wordpress.com. And lastly, our coffee page is where we post our monthly newsletter, and that's coffee.com/xpbillionaires. Feel free to donate if you like us, and if not, just spread the word for us. We're just as happy one way or the other. All right, so that's going to be it for us this week. So always remember the 3 types of monsters that are out there: the good, the bad, and the ones that make you keep gaming. We'll see you next week.
Bye!
See ya!
Bye-bye.